So today we're going to talk about hitting off a strong front side. All right, so during a kinematic sequence, everything accelerates, and there's a deceleration part to allow the barrel to accelerate through the hitting zone. All right, so with a lot of young hitters, what we'll see is that they'll land, and their pelvis will still slide forward before they start to rotate. And what's going to happen there is that they're going to have to create space by throwing their hands at the baseball and not working behind the baseball. So one thing that we do with a lot of our guys is we actually just put them on an incline. And what this will do is it will force them to actually rotate behind their front hip, and that will allow for the kinematic sequence to kind of go in order. So I'll start to rotate, and then my front side will hold my backside through, and I'll be able to accelerate the bat through the strike zone. So this is something that we use. We can also do it on the back end, feeding the mistake of them coming this way and having them learn how to stay in their back leg, stay grounded, and be able to accelerate their backside.
So we talk a lot about deceleration when we're talking about any type of sports performance. Like we want to decelerate before we accelerate. You need to learn how to absorb force. All these things are definitely true. And something I put out the other day is we actually want to start thinking more of like absorbing force, like pulling an e-brake in the car so that the back end can whip around. So one part of your body stops, and that kind of catapults the other end around. I also think that using a term like e-brake or catapult signifies a lot more of like a violent stop, which is what we want in athletics. We don't want something that's gradual. Gradual is slow, it's unexplosive. So just using a little different verbiage, it's kind of a, might not necessarily be 100% correct, but I think what it implies to the athlete is that it needs to be violent and it needs to be quick. And in the weight room, we're trying to build capacity, and we'll build more capacity if we're thinking those things. So I say all that to show you something that we've been playing around with for the front side in any type of rotational movement, and just understanding the violence of this moves first, it comes to complete stop. That allows for a maximal stretch from the anterior sling and allows me to rotate through, and then I need to be able to finish in a strong position. Whether you're pitching and you're leaking forward or leaking out, velo is going to decrease. If you're hitting and you're leaking towards the ball, not only will exit velo decrease, but you'll probably have a lot of issues with timing. So it's a very important concept in rotational sports, especially baseball. So what we're going to do, I have a Viper here. I'm fortunate enough to have this as a piece of equipment. You can do it with like a regular, very small barbell. You can do it with a light dumbbell. You can do it with a med ball. It doesn't really matter the implement. And I'm going to have my lead leg forward here, so I'm right-handed. I'm going to show you on my left side. And I'm going to be up in this position with the Viper, so I'm reaching up and as far back as possible. My hips are slightly open here, which I want. And then I'm going to try to rotate with my hips first, so my hip fires back. And as I do that, I come through and I stop and pause in this position. If you lack internal rotation in your front hip, this will be very hard. And you're going to make sure you go through the proper mobility drills first before you try to do something like this, or you're going to have possibly discomfort, but you're really going to have a hard time holding that position. You're probably going to fall off, or your foot's going to lose contact with the ground. So assuming that all those mobility issues are not a problem, we're going to be up here, then fire, pause. Back up here, slow, fire, pause. So again, emphasis on sticking that landing. If you can feel the hip go first, and then that allows the upper body to come through, even better. And we want to make sure that we're accepting that force with a rapid stop and not falling over, not losing our footing. And that should really help you in the cage with what Pablo was talking about with the strong front side.